and then our event will be 60 minutes in total today. We've got some time up front to hear about the business side of things, and then we will jump into the sneakerhead portion at the end. So an official peek at the agenda, we've got HPE and Mobius up on deck for some great content for you guys. And then we will have Cassidy Edwards from C&K Daily. She is our resident sneakerhead to guide you through all things. And then we'll end it out with showing you how to design your own pair of custom kicks with that gift card that is coming. So let's take care of the business up front. I would like to officially introduce Liz Lovelace from Mobius to kick us off. Go ahead, Liz.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to say hello and welcome you to our Kicks event. And we've been a partner with HPE for over 20 years and just wanted to say hello and welcome everyone. And if you have any questions after, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thanks so much.
My name is Scott Fawcett. I've been in storage since Y2K. I'm sure some of you have also had that fun stuff. So I worked for Veeam before this. Before that, I worked for other various VARs, and now I've been at HPE for about 4 years now. So today, Mobius asked me to talk about HPE. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Where are we going? What makes HPE special? So, come on, click. So basically, today, the current state of storage is that HPE is kind of in a transitional period, if you will. We have current traditional storage models where we have our mission critical, your business critical, and your general purpose apps that spawn a myriad of different platforms, going from our active nodes, the Electra 9Ks down to the Electra 6 and 6000s and 5000s, and then some other products as well, the HCI, as well as our not low end, but I call it the starter box storage with our MSA. So that's been traditionally the way storage is, but the holy grail of storage has always been a scalable storage that's connected across many nodes, and so you have redundancy and resiliency across nodes. It's kind of a grid architecture, but without the east-west traffic that typically comes with it, with the east-west traffic scaling issue that typically comes with a grid issue, with a grid architecture. So HPE decided to go, all right, we've done quite a bit of things. HPE bought in 2017, they bought Nimble, and if you kind of wonder why we bought Nimble, that's where we have our 5K and our 6Ks have kind of come up into that. We already had 3PAR. We bought it for InfoSight. And so we've integrated InfoSight into all of our other product lines for our compute. We're integrating with Aruba for their network and connectivity pieces. But we're taking that all together into a single pane of glass as a single control plane. And so that's where HPE is going. But what we're doing today, just to kind of as a quick look, is that this is our Electra 9Ks, which is basically our active storage. These are the ones that they have 100% guaranteed uptime. They scale out to very large throughput numbers. They're currently the only solution we have that's active. And the thing that makes them special is that traditionally in storage, you have the controller node and you have its pair from an active passive standpoint. And then you have a grid, sort of an internet connected mesh between the active nodes, and then you kind of go across and you use a backplane, all that kind of fun stuff. 3PAR, which is its predecessor, came up with the idea of using an ASIC. It's kind of like, take it from like the mainframe perspective, where if you have CPUs that are dedicated to individual functions within the mainframe. So we take the ASICs and we use the ASICs to leverage the input output coming off the cards and basically feed it and unwrap all the Ethernet and the connectivity protocols and feed it directly into the memory pool. And previous versions, before the 9K, the ASICs memory and the CPU memories were segregated. Now they're shared. And they've also gone through, and previously with previous iterations going back to the Primera and the 3PAR days, is that if you did an OS update, it was all one monolithic package. You couldn't, if you changed one thing, you had to go change everything else underneath, and it was an entire image that was fixed. Well, that's great if you want to do that, but for Q&A, for updates, for maintenance, for security fixes, it becomes laborious because I have to change the entire OS instead of just an individual piece that I need to modify. So we took the OS and we modularized it into container blocks essentially. And so container block services. And so when you need to update one of those, it updates and that service restarts without having to go mess with the entire image for that file. And so the other thing that we have for the 9Ks is that they're the only storage product out there that has 100% availability uptime guarantee.
It does the whole.
So, and it does not require anything from the customer perspective. As soon as you purchase the array, it's right there. If it goes down and it's our fault, then we'll pony up whatever we need to fix it, and we'll pay you, money on the barrelhead to prove that it was our fault. I don't know exactly the specifics of how much money is sent out, but we will honor that. We've had to pay it out. We've only had to pay it out a handful of times since we did this. Like, I think it started about 3 years ago. All right, so let's talk about the Electra 6K and 5K. And you may be wondering why we have it all as Electra. So I probably should have addressed this before, but basically storage for HPE has kind of come through a naming convention change. We used to have the 3-par, the Primera, the Nimble, all of those things. And we've consolidated those down into one storage footprint. So the brand name for storage as a whole is called Electra. And then you have different model numbers underneath that. We just talked about the 9K, now we're talking about the 6K and the 5Ks. The 6K and the 5K are based off of the Nimble OS line and the Nimble chassis. There's two different, they come in 2 different flavors. The 6000 is an all NVMe, and just like the 9Ks, they're all NVMe. But the difference between the two is, whereas the 9K is disk-based for performance, the 6K is not. It's a CPU-driven architecture, which is a little different take than what we did on the 9Ks. And so these don't have quite the performance level as the 9Ks, but they do push out a significant amount of IO. And these are not an active storage system. They're an active standby. So if one node fails, it goes over to the other one. So we also have the 5K, which is more of a capacity. But if you look at it from this way, if you're doing a CPU-driven architecture, the capacity underneath it doesn't really matter from a performance perspective. It's what the controller can push from an IO perspective that allows you to do what you need to do for throughput, bandwidth, all of that fun stuff. And typically you'll use your storage tier for your primary storage, for your general workloads, you'll use the 6K for that. And you'll typically use the 5000 series for long-term storage. If you're in oil and gas, you'll use it for your seismic stuff, backup targets, secondary storage for NAS files, things of that nature. So the other interesting thing that we do with the 6Ks and the 5Ks is that we can group those together. So you can scale up or you can scale out. Scale up would be basically upgrading controllers in place. And then scaling out would be able to group those architectures together into, you can concatenate across any or all of them if you wish. So you can literally stripe volumes across individual nodes, or you can group them together from a management perspective within that OS. It's kind of something that we inherited from Nimble that we've continued on, and it works very well for that. So it allows you to scale up IO or capacity depending on which way you need to go. All right, so where are we going from storage? So we talked a little bit about where we are currently, what's on the truck now, but let's be realistic. If I have a 9K, a 6K, and a 5K, number one, that's confusing to the consumer. What do we have? And number two, that means for each individual model number, I have to maintain a dedicated piece of hardware for that. So I have a 9K platform, and then there's individual models within the 9K. The 6Ks I have goes from 6010 all the way up to a 6080. So there's model numbers there. The 5000s have individual models, all at a different size, and we have to maintain all of those parts, the inventory, all of that stuff. That gets expensive. So what HPE did is that we decided to take and try to do the holy grail of architecture. We wanted to do a scale out architecture where we can scale out to ridiculous sizes, multiple petabyte sizes. We want to be able to segregate our IO into a capacity, into an IO and a throughput perspective. So they are no longer wedded into the same controller. So if I need a certain level of IO and a certain level of capacity, well, I need to be in this box. Well, that's not really what we're looking to do. If you need a certain amount of capacity, that's great. Well, then you put these size drives in. If I need additional IO, well, I can put these additional type of computer IO nodes in the front of it, so that way I can expand however I want. And so this came out as of April of 2023, so it's fresh off the truck this year. And so basically what we're doing is we're leveraging that with something we call the Data Services Cloud Console, which you'll see right there in the middle. And the Data Services Cloud Console is is a central pane of glass. It is a central management console or central management backend, if you will, that allows you to plug in and to manage your storage, your compute, as well as your networking. So, because let's be realistic, servers are essentially a commodity, storage is now a commodity. You're leveraging and you're managing your storage based off an SLA typically to your application users rather than specific speeds and feeds. So it allows you to do what we call intent-based provisioning. Excuse me. That will allow you to set that SLA to your application end users, and then be able to just delineate how I want to provision it out based off of that SLA. But the nice thing about this is it's the same platform. So we've also, HPE has historically never really had a file offering. I mean, we kind of had one, but not really. Didn't have the performance that we really wanted it to have, and it had some issues. So we've mostly been a block providing for storage company. Well, what we decided to do was take the same chassis from our new scale up for block and leverage that same infrastructure for file, because they're very different IO patterns and very different throughput streams. And so we've basically been able to simplify our entire portfolio. I mean, we go from our Nimble to our MSAs, to Primeros, Electros, all of that fun stuff. We even have the XPs on here, down to one hardware. So it makes things much easier to manage. So what exactly are we talking about here? So this is what we call Electra for MP. Electra MP is, or GreenLake for block, whichever way you want to go. It is a software-defined disaggregated storage. It's a grid layout where you have compute and your IO nodes as two entirely different entities within here. You can scale it out to multi-petabytes, and it is a write-through architecture. And it's all NVMe across front end all the way to the back end. So basically, like I said, why are we doing this? We're getting away from the purpose-built architecture because it doesn't make sense to manage multiples. And we're trying to provide a single consolidated solution that goes into that central management plane that we were talking about. Because realistically, at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to provide storage and capacity and throughput to your users. You don't really care, well, this box does 1.21 gigabytes, that box does 1.21 gigabytes. It doesn't matter. You just need to make sure it meets the intent of what you want it to provide. And if I have to do different individual silos for that, it becomes cumbersome to manage once I try scaling out, or if I have to upgrade. If I have to upgrade it into an active or an active standby node scenario, I either add capacity directly into that, or once it's at the end of its life, I have to go to a new storage array. I can't just put some new nodes in, move stuff over and evacuate the old stuff out and just kind of play a shell game with it. I can't do that. And that's what we're looking at providing now. So Electra Storage MP is going to have these the storage nodes that I was talking about for capacity. We call them JBOFs, just a bunch of flash. And then we have our compute nodes, which are basically are going to be running our IO streams. The thing that's really interesting is that we've totally changed the way we write the data through. I don't really have time to go through it here, but normally in a grid layout like this, you're going to have east-west traffic, and that's going to cause problems. But here, it's all handled by the individual compute nodes, landing on the individual disks, and the IO it can do is just absolutely insane. So, like I talked about briefly, it will allow you to scale out. It's massively parallelized across because it's all NVMe. So that's the whole fun part of NVMe is its parallel file system. That is disaggregated, so your compute and your IO are separate. And basically, we're sharing the same type of hardware with our new offering also for GreenLake for file, which I'll talk about in just a second here. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what the architecture actually looks like. So you will have switches, and then your compute node and your storage nodes are actually going to connect into there and create a fabric. And then the IO will come into the compute node and then will be fed on the back end to the storage node. And then the IO will be fed back up out of the compute node to service the client request. So if there's a failover from an IO node, okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter. If there's a failure on the storage, it'll go to another compute node. It works out pretty well. So some of the things that we've done that were interesting is we've totally changed the way we've done snapshots. We used to do redirect on redirect on write, and now it's just a pass through. It's a redirection from an IO. It's read on write, and now we do enhanced data reduction. So I'll talk briefly about that. We've added a new type of data deduplication because essentially data deduplication in storage is table stakes. Everybody does it. Everybody does it using actually almost the same algorithm, the LZ4 Pro. So we've actually changed the way we're doing that. So we'll just wanted to have a better picture of what it would actually look like once you start scaling out to multiple compute nodes. And like, again, you can scale these individually if you want to scale out compute or storage, and you can put different size drives in them from a capacity perspective. And that feeds all back to the client request. So the current layout right now is you can start out as a 2-node. You can start as a 2-node 8-core system if you want. It's going to go up to 2-node 32-core systems currently. Next version, which I believe is due end of this year, which don't quote me on that, but we'll be able to adding multiple 64-core nodes in there. So you can start to see it's going to scale out quite significantly pretty quickly. So, all right, so GreenLake for file. So GreenLake for file is the basically, so we had Electra MP for storage for block, and now we have GreenLake for file using the same underlying architecture from the same chassis perspective, using the same sort of methodology where we disaggregate compute and storage.
That makes sense.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry, I thought I had a question. You can ask questions, I promise, I won't bite. So we have the file from a NAS perspective. You've got the compute and the inode as or the compute and the storage locations as two different pieces of the infrastructure, and allows you to scale out from around 200 terabytes all the way up to hundreds of petabytes. I think the largest deployment that I've heard of is 35 petabytes. But as a single scalable file system, that's pretty ridiculous. So typically you would be able to leverage this anytime you would typically be able to leverage a NAS that's going to be anywhere from about 200 petabytes and up. If it gets smaller than that, in the NVMe probably prices are not going to let you do that. But we've seen a lot of HPE is doing a lot of AI and ML type stuff where you have these massive data lakes, and a lot of people who are looking at those are very interested in the throughput you can get through here. But let's talk a little bit about what we do. So we have all the file services that you would normally expect. We have the quota management, we have replication, we have Kubernetes and OpenStack drivers, all the APIs, all the NFS connectivity protocols that you want to do, as well as integration to LDAP and AD and all that fun stuff. So a little bit deeper dive into what the architecture actually kind of looks like. You have your compute, and then you have your storage enclosure. All of these nodes are going to have the same underlying architecture from a compute and memory perspective. So all the compute nodes are 256 gig, and all the JBOFs and the storage nodes are all 64 from a memory perspective. And then the CPUs are going to be the same across. Depending on which way we go, but they'll be across the same chassis. So it's just, if you need to put a 32 or an 8, 32, 64, whatever core you want to put on there, we can just put it in CPU, but it'll basically be the same across the board. And then we can connect up to 100 gig switches. So basically the storage fabric for, whoops, it didn't. Okay. So basically what we're looking at from the file perspective, you still have the compute nodes from the client perspective, and you still have the capacity for the storage as individual separations. So you have your compute and your storage as two different chassis. And then you've got the internet connected switch. And so if you need to scale out, you just put whatever you need. If you need additional capacity, you just slot a node in there. And if it's additional compute, you add one into it. Scales up pretty easily. And then the other interesting thing is that it's a traditional shared nothing architecture. So normally you have one disk that owns it, and then the others don't actually touch it. Well, we've basically done a shared everything architecture. So basically, if one node comes in, I go from the compute stream down. It hits a compute node, it hits a storage node. That storage node is going to own that IO, but it doesn't matter which compute node hits it. And if that storage capacity goes away, you still have resiliency across the structure from a RAID perspective to be able to rebuild it if you need to. But it's still controlled by that single individual storage controller. So it eliminates crosstalk, which has been the bane of any sort of grid layout that we've done historically. Because once you start doing a grid architecture, you would expect a linear performance doesn't actually quite work that way. You have a linear cost, from an overhead to a RAID to a, multiple node erasure coding and moving stuff around. So whatever's most active is on whatever node that needs to be there is receiving IO from a caching perspective. But your performance starts to dip off the more nodes you add and you start scaling up. So the performance scales costs is significant as you start expanding up to multiple petabytes. The interesting thing that we've done here is we've added a new type of data reduction. So you have your normal data deduplication, your compression, and then we've done similarity. So the cool thing about that is that from a data deduplication perspective, your compression and deduplication, I forget the algorithms that they're currently using, but they're basically, the mechanisms are still the same as we've done historically. Similarity will basically allow you to take those deduplicated blocks that have appeared before and then reference those without having to add those again. But the nice thing is that it'll take what has, but if it's not a full block, for example, if I have a block and only half of it's similar to everything else, well, the similarity will allow me to reference the partial block sizes instead of just the whole block. And that's where the additional space savings have really come into play, because if you're doing deduplication compression historically on our other product lines, it's as one entire block. If it's that block, whatever is written to it is deduped and compressed, and then it's written out, well, that's the stripe size is the stripe size and the block is written as a blocks type, and I can't change whatever it is. So unless it's identical, I can't re-reference that. So I can only give you so much deduplication, and we're seeing really good numbers from global deduplication and similarity reduction. So the other nice thing is that from an overhead cost to raw to usable, that overhead has dropped significantly. Our OS for the Nimble has been one of the industry leaders with well over 75% as being available usable space. But we can actually get it down to 2.7 on the, once we start scaling out a little bit to the GreenLake for file. So that allows us to get raw to usable and just eliminate that overhead from a RAID as well as a OS perspective. So you're really getting the most out of whatever IO space that you're getting for your drives. So one last thing I wanted to talk about is I talked about it a little bit before. So HPE is looking at the storage industry strategically and saying, okay, storage is a commodity, computer is a commodity, networking to a certain degree is a commodity because we always expect things to be online and available to us. I need to be able to continue that to be able to access and control my data as well. So if I want to be able to manage it, I need to be able to manage it remotely, and I need to manage it at scale. But I need to manage everything, not just one piece of my data center pie. And so what the Data Services Cloud Console has allowed us to do is manage that holistically. We have our compute nodes, we have we have the storage, we have networking, and you can all manage and you can all access it through one central pane of glass. So, and I always kind of make an alignment to sort of this breaking trademarks here, but sort of one ring to rule them all. Because if I can manage it and I don't have to worry about individual console UIs, that means everybody, I can have a secondary person be a backup for me. So I'm not, if I have to go on vacation, nobody's calling me on vacation, which I've had happen multiple times, and I've really never appreciated it. And so if we can scale out the cloud experience and make it manageable to you as a user, it makes your job easier. And it also allows you to access it from anywhere. So if you do happen to be out and about and you're on call or whatnot, and you need to have a problem, well, if you can just call your buddy and be like, hey, go here, click on that, and they have the same access you do. So it makes things real easy. And it's also a homogeneous UI. So the look and the feel is the same across individual, both the compute and the storage. So you're looking at the same sort of navigation page, you're looking at the same sort of dashboards that you were looking at before. So you're not, nothing's really, there's no jarring between one pane to the next. Any questions, comments, concerns? Nothing?
You can drop those questions in the chat if you have them. Scott will be on our event for the remainder of the time to help answer any questions if they do pop up. But you have his undivided attention right now, and I know he'd love to answer those if you have them.
Yeah, if you want to take a left at Albuquerque, sorry for the guy in New Mexico, but we can answer those questions too. And if you want to just drop me a line, my email is scott.fawcett@hpe.com if you have any questions for me. All right, so if there's no questions, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Cassidy, who is our Floridian sneaker guru.
Thank you so much. Super excited to be here with you all today. We're going to dive into all things sneaker culture, so it's going to be a crash course through sneakers, some storytelling. But I like to start with getting to know my audience. Like, this is a safe space. It's a judgment-free zone when it comes to sneakers here. If I'm being honest, nothing super exclusive today, just some Nike slides, but I am going to show you some pretty exclusive pairs as we get into it. So on a level of 1 through 10, 1 being, hey, I only have like sandals or maybe 1 pair of sneakers, you know, it doesn't matter, or all the way to a 10, I know my brands, I know my silhouettes. I have quite a few pairs of sneakers in my rotation. How would you rate yourself? You know, so drop that number, drop your number in the chat. I always welcome 1s and 2s because I feel like, you know, we really get to know each other. You all get some nice Nike Jordan content today. While I definitely love New Balance and their storytelling in sneakers right now, today is going to be very Nike Jordan heavy. So get ready for that. All right. Love to see it. All right. So Cassidy Edwards, resident sneakerhead with LMH experiences. And a lot of people ask me, how many sneakers do you have? So to be honest, I've been collecting sneakers and loving them for, you know, over 2 decades. And so I'd say probably like 100-ish sneakers is 100 something sneakers is what I have right now. So I currently work in sneakers. Think of me today as your culture architect or your culture engineer. My day-to-day is director of people operations, so HR with TradeBlock. It is a tech startup. It's a sneaker trading app. And so you can upload your sneakers in a digital closet and you can trade, right? We have a lot of buy sell, or we have some big buy sell markets in the sneaker industry. So we create kind of a niche where, yes, like GOAT is a buy sell. Someone put GOAT in the chat. GOAT is a buy sell, you know, platform. And so we have this niche, unique, sustainable way of acquiring sneakers by trading, you know, trading sneakers. We do make sure they're all authenticated and they're real, quality control, all of those things. But there's about 330,000, you know, sneaker lovers or sneaker enthusiasts in the app. So you get to see what's in their closet, their digital closet, and then what's on their wish list. And you can pair up and find each other through sneakers, through sizes, through brands. So it's really, really cool. It's definitely come full circle for me. I also work as the managing editor with C&K Daily, which is a voice for women in sneaker culture. So we do a lot of sneaker storytelling with brands. We work directly with Jordan, with Nike, with New Balance, with Adidas, some of your favorite brands and retailers like Foot Locker, Finish Line. We create content and tell stories around sneakers. So, you know, why sneakers? Why are they even a thing? For me, they have been a universal language of creative expression, kind of a badge of cool, you know, confidence. When I saw Michael Jordan, you know, on the hardwood, his confidence, I felt like, well, if I put on those shoes as an introverted child, like I may have that confidence too. So it became kind of that universal language for me of creative expression. And today, my goal is really to connect. You know, that's what culture is about, connecting through sneakers, unlocking some of your creative expression for creating your own sneakers, and then just taking you on a trip down memory lane. So let's get into it. Yes, I had no idea there was an actual sneak. Yeah, so we come from the days of like the Nike Talk era where we were camping out for sneakers. Nike Talk was a forum and, you know, chatting about how we can get these sneakers. Accessibility was hard then, and it's still kind of hard now, you know. Technology is a gift and a curse for us. So, with that, I started my sneaker journey in the 90s. So for me, the 90s was the golden era for everything. My friend, back when AI was just this right here. So my friend with AI would agree. The 90s was pretty golden, but it really had great sneakers, great music, great art. And so that's how sneakers started for me. It started in skate culture. So we're going to go through a little bit of my origin sneakers that dive into a little bit of the skate culture. We're going to talk about some classics along the way, my kind of collection of classics that I want to show you, just a little roundup of those. We're going to talk about the trends in sneaker culture, kind of the big trend right now, and then round it out with maybe a couple of my favorites before we end. So unfortunately, I wear my Nikes from the 90s there. So that's amazing. Like if you have shoes that have held up from the 90s, that is a gem in your closet. So I got started with skate culture in the 90s. Think of the soundtrack was Nirvana, it was Pearl Jam, it was Green Day, it was Smashing Pumpkins. So it was all of those, that was kind of the soundtrack to the childhood at that time. And when you hang out with skateboarders, you're wearing Airwalks, you're wearing Vans, Converse. Still wear those today and they're pretty budget friendly. And then also you're wearing Nike Dunks. So I wasn't the best, definitely not athletically inclined, but I wasn't the best skateboarder. I was more skateboarder adjacent. So as I hung out with the skateboarders, we had the b-boys in the background, the breakdancers, we had the graffiti artists, and that kind of molded how I got into sneaker culture through that intersection of creative expression. So my origin sneakers, we're going to start out with the Dunks, right? And so one of my favorite pairs, I'm going to take you through 3 pairs of Dunks, right? So Juice said my 05 Kobe soles came. Oh, that's tragic. Yeah, I hate when the soles kind of, crack and they will, over time. But definitely the more you wear your shoes, I feel like they don't deteriorate as much as if you never wore them and you just kind of held them as a trophy, right? So Dunks, Nike Dunks. This is one of my favorite pairs. It is a Nike Dunk Low. It's from 2007, 2008 time frame. It's a low because it's a low construction. It's not a high top. And it looks familiar, right? So it looks like a composition notebook. So it's part of the 2008 Nike Back to School pack. As you can tell, it has the sun, the Florida sun is kind of crazy, but as you can see right there, it has this white, it's like wide ruled paper, notebook paper that is the side panels, which I thought was really cool. And it has that black and white kind of speckled aesthetic of a composition notebook. And so I'm a writer. So I love writing. I've wrote like horror stories in elementary school. It was kind of odd, but I love writing. So I had so many composition notebooks. So all that to say, I want you to think about how you connect to sneakers. Is it like the story and the design? Is it functionality, like what you wear them for? This is more of a lifestyle pair for me. So I feel like you can just throw it by the door. You can dress it up, you can dress it down. So think about how you connect to sneakers or how you want to connect to your sneakers. I had to get this one because I was like, oh my God, it looks like a composition notebook. That's pretty cool. And so this top part of the shoe is the upper. So we're going to talk about a few areas of the shoe as I go along, but you have the upper, you have the toe box, which is the black toe box. It's very lightweight. I'm part of the small feet tribe, so I can wear kid sizes, which is nice and budget friendly, but it also has this black swoosh or the Nike check that offsets that white panel, on the upper, which is a great contrast, in my opinion. So it looks cool. One great thing about Dunks is that you can customize them now on Nike by You, and before you couldn't. So this is a really great shoe if you just want a regular kind of true to size pair. This would be one that I would highly recommend that you customize. So you should see how well I made on buying Nike stuff. Oh, yes. Okay, you knew what you were doing. And so let's move on to Nike SBs. So there is a Dunk and then there's an SB Dunk, right? So skateboarding, I think if you loved, dunks, or you love, Nike dunks back in the day, for me, I think the golden time or era for the dunks was really like the early 2000s, right? So they had the early 2000s was, they had great collaborations. So, dunks were very like a cult classic, back in the day. They weren't so mainstream. They're definitely mainstream now. You'll see the panda dunks, the black and white dunks everywhere, just easy colorway, black and white. But the skateboarding, the SBs, they had great collaborations, and we usually knew them by the box. So like the pink box era or the orange box is where it started, and you kind of knew the dunks from there. If you're on the East Coast, they had an amazing, people lined up around the block. It was mayhem. It was crazy for the pigeon dunk. That was a really big one back in the day. It was all over the paper on the East Coast, and we even knew about it in the South. So sometimes where you live can sway or influence the preferences of shoes that you buy as well. So think about how you connect to sneakers. And for this one, this is another way of how I connect to sneakers, through moments in time. So this is the SB, this is the mummy. So Raymond already knew, he put that in the chat. One of my favorite SB, skateboarding. I didn't skateboard, but they're constructed a little differently. They're meant for the board. They have a thicker tongue, they're meant to be, kind of torn up, on the board, but this is a fun pair. The upper is like a Muslim type of, mummy wrap. The back has this little wrap sticking out. It has the graphic eyes. It has the graphic underneath the tongue. The fun part about this pair is, so you have the upper, which is the top, but underneath you have the midsole section. And so this midsole glows in the dark. So it's like a really fun pair. The way I connected to this is because I love Halloween. So I am a horror movie fanatic. There's also the Freddy dunks, which are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I don't have those. They're meant to kind of look like his sweater. But as I grew up in the, 80s baby, but grew up in the 90s, watched all the horror movies. And so I was like, well, I really want to look cool when I go trick-or-treating with my children. So I'm connecting to this through just what I love. It's kind of part of my identity and my personality. So maybe it's a moment in time that you want to memorialize in your sneaker design. So very, very fun pair, the dunks. It also has some cool like lime green laces that go with it. This is actually dead stock. I've never worn them, so that means dead stock, but I plan to break them out this year for Halloween, for Kicks at the Castle, which is a Disney World kind of kick group, like sneaker group, which is cool. And so if you're like, well, those are great, but I really just want a regular colorway. I just want a regular, pair of shoes. I have something for you too. So we have this dunk. Now this is a high. This is a women's dunk high. So you can see it's a high top. It's not a low construction. The upper is a really easy two-tone colorway. You can't go wrong with a two-tone colorway. So it's just two colors, a white leather base, and then the panels are all orange. So you may want to think about the colors that you like, because that's the only reason I bought this pair, because I like orange. It's like one of my favorite colors. So think about, and this is actually one that you can customize as well. So you'll see it on Nike by You, but think about the colors that you're drawn to. This is also one that can transition between seasons. So, right, this can go from summer, it can go into the holiday season with the orange. So kind of think about your own personal style. And, what does your style look like? Is it just very comfortable? Hey, I want a functional pair of running shoes. They have Pegasus. I love my Pegasus, by the way. I love Nike Pegasus. Very, very comfortable. Not really a runner, but I try to be. And so the Pegasus do what they have to do when it comes to that. So you can also customize those. So if you have a race coming up, or you want to, gift a shoe or a customized shoe to someone who's a runner, then that may be the type of pair that you customize, right? So let's move into the classics really quick. So this collection that I'm going to show you is called the Ones. So you have the Air Max 1, the Air Force 1, and the Air Jordan 1. So we'll start with a really fun Air Max 1. So Air Maxes, They are the OGs. They're original. You know, the Air Max family is vast. They have a big family tree. You have Air Max 1s, which I consider really like OGs, originators of the Air Max family, obviously. But you also have Air Max 95s, 97s, 98s. Like there's a few of those. Oh, so you said I'm wearing the Air Max Concepts right now. Oh, that's amazing. The box behind me, I have a pair of Concepts, Air Max, and they're 1s. Would love for you to show us, you know, if you feel inclined. But this is a very fun pair. It's a collaboration with Atmos, which is a streetwear brand. So Nike collabed with Atmos to make this really fun, like animal pack. I threw some green laces in there just to make it a little spicy with colors. It has a white but dirty midsole because I wear my shoes all the time. And it has a gum outsole. So the bottom of the shoe is the outsole. I really love a gum outsole. You can choose that. You can select, you know, changing your outsole and your midsole, the colors there. On the upper, you can change your materials as well. You can do satin, you can do leather, you can do canvas. This one's a little crazy. It's an exclusive. And so it's kind of a pony hair feel. But it's a very fun pair. And when you choose a gum sole, it kind of gives you that retro runner vibe from Nike. So it throws it back a little bit if you like that. So if you want something a little more, you know, like bold, but also more than 2 colors, then it may be something like this. So this is a Air Max 1, so same shoe, right? We worked with a Houston artist named Cassidy Edwards to create this pair in 2020 during quarantine, during pandemic. So it was kind of a weird time. But her story design, we actually sold this through Nike, this colorway, through their customizer program. And the thought of the story design was like, be bold, be colorful, be creative, even though we're kind of in this time of adversity because we're all inside. And so she was saying as an artist to keep creating, which I thought was a great message. And so it has this really pretty like royal blue mud guard here, toe box, right? Another part of the shoe is gold. You have forest green like panels on top. And instead of having just really colorful laces, we opted to go with white laces and then just a white Nike swoosh, you know, make it pretty plain as far as that. In your custom by you platform, you will be able to change like the laces and the swoosh color. So kind of think about, you know, how you can add those pops to your shoe. One thing that's really cool about this one is on the heel tab, you have the Nike branding, but you also have, it says Q20. So this stood for quarantine 2020. And in Nike by you, you can put your own, you know, text on the back. So it may be, you know, a summer wedding gift or like a Mr. and a Mrs. on the back. You know, you may really rock with HPE, that can fit on the back as well. You may want to rep your city, right? So maybe an area code or just a special date or initials, you know, you can definitely put those on the back as well. So think about how you want to, you know, spice it up with those small details because those make a big difference when you're creating a sneaker. So next, we're going to move into the Air Force 1 and then lastly, the Air Jordan 1. So this is a really, really fun pair, an Air Force 1. As a sneaker lover, I think everyone should have at least 1 or 2 pairs of just white on white Air Force 1s. On the East Coast, they call them Uptowns. Down South, we call them Air Force 1s. But this is a fun collaborative pair with Undefeated, which is another streetwear brand. So Nike got with them. They actually created a dunk in this colorway that was, you know, some years back. Wasn't able to get it. It was kind of the same colors, but it didn't come in my size. So when the Air Force 1 came out, I was like, oh, I definitely want to take advantage and try to get that pair. So this has a lot of mixed colors on the upper. All these panels on Nike by you, you can change the color. So you can make it as bold or as monochromatic as you like. I love this one because it has a patent leather kind of makeover here. And then you can't really tell, but this midsole is not white. It's like a very, very light lime green, right? The outsole is dirty, but it is the bright green and it matches my nails. So this is a fun pair to show you. if you're starting a collection in Air Force One is great. They do go a half size up. So they run a little big. So I would probably go down half a size if you were buying them. I'm from Uptown, but I've never owned a pair. Oh, you need to. Okay. So Michael said, do you have any sneakers with mood paint, like mood rings that changes color with temperature? Oh, no, I don't. But there was some Air Jordan 1s. So we're going to talk about those that had that kind of iridescent look to it. And I didn't get them, but they were definitely a beautiful pair. It was kind of a bluish, dark purplish, and it changed colors with the light. So those are always really, really cool. But my favorite, I'm very biased. So Air Jordan 1, designed in the 80s by Peter Moore. This is a fun pair for me. These are OG kind of colorways, you know, the black and the red, the bread is what we call it. Here's also an Air Jordan 11 bread. So think, you know, 11s, think Space Jam. The 11 was in Space Jam. It was a different color, but that was the shoe. And so this pair is like my rain shoes. So I love any patent leather kind of finish because I can still wear them out when it was raining in Houston or now Florida, and it serves its purpose and I can still look fly in my sneakers. So I love a black and red colorway. It's offset with that white midsole and a red. Yeah, let's do some trading. And the outsole is red, white midsole, outsole is red. And so these are a really, really great pair. If you hadn't seen the movie Air and you want to watch something, I suggest that you definitely watch that. It's a great movie. Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Viola Davis, Chris Tucker, and it kind of takes you into Jordan coming over to Nike, and we know what happened from there. So great pair, Air Jordan 1. It's timeless. And so let's get into just the big sneaker trend right now. Before we get on that, I do have a quick trivia question just to make sure you all are with me. And it's a sport. It's kind of related to sports a little bit. So this is a LeBron 16, right? So it's never been worn. It was a gift from Nike. LeBron is my favorite player. And no matter what team he's on, by the way. And so this was a collaboration with Harlem Fashion Row, which is a collective of Black designers that are women. And so I just love this pair. It has like, you know, this lion on the back. It's meant to be like elevated basketball. So I'd like you all to guess how much it is. So not the retail value, but how much it would go for right now. So just drop that in the chat. Yes, prayers for Bronny. That was very unfortunate. LeBron's son had some bad news today. Okay, 20,000. Okay, I would definitely sell them if they were 20,000, but yes, that's a great guess. But so I'm gonna leave that there and I'll come back to it, but drop your, okay, we got 10K, 12K. I feel like one of those, you know, people at the auctions and the bids. Do we got 5K? Do we got 6? And so let's jump into the big trend. So, oh, Ryan was very specific, 1999. Okay. So the biggest trend, plot twist, is customization, right? It's what you all are going to be doing. And so there's two sides of customization that we're seeing a lot today. We're seeing the side where it's like deconstructing the shoe, making it look vintage, making it look worn, which is a really big trend. You may ask why. I have shoes in my closet that look very worn, but it really started, the deconstruction really started with Off-White, the collaborations with Off-White. And then you have the other side of customization, which is painting. So, you know, dipping, dyeing, painting the sneakers. So I'm going to show you two examples of both. And these are some of my favorite pairs, by the way. Have you sold any part of your collection? Okay, to ask. I haven't sold. I mean, back in the day, I would sell them to my friends, but it wasn't for like, it was a nominal amount because they were my friends. I have traded a lot. You know, I traded for those mummies. I traded 2 sneakers away to get that mummy because those 2 sneakers equaled the value of the mummy. So yeah, sneakers have somewhat become an asset class, which is a little crazy. So this is the pair that kind of started all the deconstruction. It looks yellowing, which sneakers do over time. It says Air over the Air unit. It says, you know, shoelaces on the shoelaces. It has the the signature zip tie from Off-White. It has very frayed edges, but this is a women's Air Jordan 4 Off-White. It was a collaboration with the brand. So Off-White is a luxury streetwear brand. It was founded by Virgil Abloh. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2021, I believe. Yeah, 2021. It has this translucent heel tab. It's meant to look very like not unfinished. And so it's really worth retail. It was probably like $200. Today it's worth about $1,300. Just this. It kind of looks simple, right? But it's definitely a treasured pair. My collection is not insured. That's actually something I've been thinking about. When you trade, does the size of the shoe matter? Yes. So the size of the shoes matter. Some shoe sizes are considered more valuable than others, more coveted. Also the wear and tear of the shoe. So if it's never been worn versus maybe worn once versus used, right? And on Trade Block, you can trade all types of shoes. So the painted shoes, this is where you either clap for me, yay, Cassidy, she's a great host, or you boo me off stage, because we're going to get into a little bit of sports talk. So yes, think about maybe your customized shoe is your favorite sports team, because NFL season is coming up real soon, right? Bots are killing the sneaker game. That's true. That's very, very true. It makes the accessibility really difficult and challenging for us that love sneakers. But this is my painted shoe, right? So we have the dark green that fades into this bright green. We have a really big Houston fan club we call the Houston Eagles Nest. And my favorite football team, my dad is a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. So you can imagine how we disown each other each year. But it says Fly Eagles Fly on the midsole, has a black outsole. I knew I usually have a Cowboys fan in the mix, but that is one of the biggest trends that you all will be doing, with your sneaker customization through Nike by You. So those are some of my favorite sneakers. I will show you probably I would say my ultimate favorite. It's really hard asking a sneaker lover that. It's like asking a mom who her favorite child is, and we don't have an answer for that, right? So. But this pair is probably my favorite. It's the most timeless. It has the most memories to it. It is the Air Jordan 11. So kind of like this, but Air Jordan 11 white, the Concord, right? And so this came out in mid 90s. It was designed by Tinker Hatfield. He's the GOAT of a lot of Air Max, a lot of Nike and Jordan silhouettes. And it was when Jordan came back, right? Came back to basketball. Shout out his retirement, because, the Houston Rockets did a thing or two back then. But this was our prom shoe. Everyone was wearing it to prom. It has this like patent leather mud guard. It was very different. And it went crazy when it released every single time. So it was a great shoe. I am going to drop the Nike by You link in the chat and just give a few best practices as we round out. And so with the Nike by You, I would say sneaker design is an art. So take your time creating, right? Probably the biggest piece of advice I would give you is also create a free Nike member account. If you have one already, that's great, because you're already going to be, you can log in, right? So you'll probably already be logged in. You will also get a Nike digital gift card within 3 to 5 business days. And you don't have to memorize everything I'm saying, because it will be all outlined in a lot of detail within that email as well. So with your free Nike member account, it doesn't only unlock like free shipping, discounts, releases when they come out, but it also saves all of your sneaker designs. So that's the great part of it. As you're customizing, you want to save stuff, because you'll leave it there for a little while, you'll come back to it. And so you don't want to have to start over every single time. So I would say have fun with it. And then also make sure your name is correct on Zoom, because we want to send those gift cards out to all of you all. And before I round out, we do have a small survey. LMH is a small business, and we love to hear what you enjoyed about custom kicks, but also, you know, where we can improve or what you want to see next time. And before I forget, this shoe, Ryan was very close. He was $1 off. It's $2,000. So it's worth $2,000 today, but it's about, you know, we paid like $220 maybe retail price. So you can see how that changes over time, and how the supply and the demand really moves, you know, sneakers as well. So hope you had a great time looking at my favorite kicks today. And yeah, I can't wait till next time.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Cassidy. Thank you everyone for hanging in with us and enjoying that great content up front from HPE and Mobius, and then the sneakers on the back end. If you have any questions, please let us know. Otherwise, please have a great afternoon. It is Tuesday. We are almost halfway through our work week. I hope you guys have a great and productive rest of your week. Thanks, everyone.